This morning, will Texas Republicans work with President Biden? A rising star in the GOP is with us, Congressman Dan Crenshaw from Houston. A very public fight playing out at Dallas City Hall. Council members versus the mayor over how and where to roll out the COVID-19 vaccine. We'll ask Mayor Eric Johnson what is going on. Speaker Dade Phelan making some news on our program this morning. The starting budget for the Texas House fully funds public education. That could reduce property taxes, but what gets cut to make it happen? We'll talk to the speaker from the Capitol. And Governor Greg Abbott stepping up his defense of police. So will any real reform actually happen after last summer's protests?
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to our viewers across the state. Lots to discuss this morning, but let's begin with the top political headlines in Texas. And we'll start with a behind-the-scenes moment from the inauguration. Former President George W. Bush privately told Democratic Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina that Clyburn was a savior for helping get Joe Biden elected. And Bush is right. After Biden finished 5th in Iowa last year, it was Clyburn who gave Biden's faltering campaign the boost it needed to win South Carolina and go on to a wave of victories on Super Tuesday, including here in Texas. In Austin, another effort to remove Confederate monuments on the grounds of the Texas Capitol. State Rep. Raphael Anchia, a Dallas Democrat, filed a bill to do that. Anchia said the Texas Capitol should be a symbol of solidarity, not home to symbols of oppression. Specifically, Anchia's bill would remove several portraits and monuments, including those cannons that are located there at the south end of the Capitol. And big changes at the top of the Texas Democratic Party. Executive Director Manny Garcia there is stepping down, and so is Cliff Walker, seen here, the Deputy Executive Director. Both have been guests here on this program. The State Democratic Party, as you know, had disappointing results in the November election. Over the past few days, we have watched something in Washington that we have not seen in years. A sense of unity between Democratic and Republican congressional leaders. The question is, can these leaders make that last? Our first guest is a rising star in the GOP, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, a Republican from Houston. Congressman, thanks for the time.
Yeah, of course. Good to be with you.
You've already been critical of President Biden's executive orders in his first days in office. On what issues, though, do you think you could work with the new president?
Well, look, I just thankfully got onto the Energy and Commerce Committee and historically been one of the more bipartisan committees in Congress. It's a serious committee. It has enormous jurisdiction, whether it's on telecom, 5G, the tech issues that are facing our country and censorship, healthcare, energy. All of these things are immensely important to Houston. So I'm hoping to work with the administration on things like, how do we save our nuclear plants, right? If you say you care about the environment, then maybe we should be looking at nuclear plants. Solar and wind get 250 times more subsidies than your typical nuclear plant, even though a nuclear plant is actually a base power load and provides clean energy. I want to work with them on actually building more pipelines. So, I have a lot of distrust in the Biden administration already because the first thing they want to do is cancel the Keystone pipeline. Well, last time I checked, that's a safer way to transport oil and gas than trains and trucks. It's also a cleaner way to transport oil and gas. I don't know what they don't understand about this. It also cancels out about 10,000 future union jobs, as the Biden administration says they want to keep. This will cost immense amount of cost to the Texas energy sector as well, some of these policies. I hope we can work together on some healthcare issues. One of my big priorities is direct primary care, getting people access to good primary care as a way to fix the rest of our healthcare problems as well.
Let's talk politics. You've recently said, I think it was on Twitter, that we can disagree without tearing each other apart. I'm curious about the GOP, though. QAnon and conspiracy theories have clearly taken root inside the Republican Party. How do you think the GOP should address that?
Well, I think we've addressed it pretty well. I mean, look, even Alex Jones is out there denouncing QAnon. So I think QAnon is well on its way out. And so, there's like maybe one or two members of Congress that have ever flirted with QAnon, and they're denounced constantly for it. This is, especially when you compare this to, say, the the Democrats' problem with something like Antifa or BLM. They don't even want to acknowledge that these things even exist or that they're even a problem. So look, the Republican Party understands what conservative values are and what should be in the box and what should be out of it. And we're pretty good about denouncing that. I want to see the same thing from Democrats.
Do you think the GOP will end up splitting like some people have been talking about?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you're seeing a lot of emotions right now in the as we transition to a Biden presidency, and you're seeing that kind of talk, but I don't think so.
Congressman, this is your first time on our program here, though, but we've heard your name plenty of times mentioned as a rising star in the GOP. I'm curious to know what you think about that when you hear that. And secondly, what are your political aspirations?
I guess I take it as a compliment, and my current political aspirations are win my next term here.
What are your future aspirations?
That is my future. That's 2 years from now. So that's about as far forward as I think. I mean, look, politics is about the opportunities that present themselves, and right now, that's not clear to me what that would be. I mean, but I do have every intention of continuing to serve Texas. All right, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, good to see you. Thanks for the time. Hey, appreciate you.
Let's refocus for a moment now on what is happening in Austin. Governor Greg Abbott is growing more resistant to police reforms in the legislature. Specifically, Abbott is against changing the way law enforcement is funded across Texas and changing the way police do their jobs. Abbott is against police reforms despite protests across the state last summer demanding change. So how is all this going to play out? Let's ask Ross Ramsey, the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune. Good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, Jason. How are you?
We're doing well here. You know, this is really likely to be among one of the most controversial pieces of legislation. But if the governor is against change, how likely is it to actually happen?
Well, it sets it up as a contest with the city of Austin, which cut some of its police funding and redirected a lot of its police funding. He says that's defunding the police. He wants the state to step in, grab Austin's tax dollars away, give it to the DPS to police Austin, and threatens to do that to other cities as well.
Well, speaking of Austin, let's talk about something else that happened down there. Texas, the state has eliminated Planned Parenthood from its Medicaid provider list, and that means that thousands of Texans are going to have to find new doctors within a couple of weeks, right?
They've got to find them by February 2nd. They've got a real hurry going on here. The problem is there's not a lot of Medicaid doctors to pick up the slack here. It's going to be a problem for a little bit, but the state has a court order behind it to make this go. All
right, Ross, back to you in a moment. Thank you. Coming up, the Texas House of Representatives wants to fully fund education. In theory, that should mean lower property taxes, right? House Speaker Dave Phelan is with us from the Capitol when we come back. Plus, what in the world is going on at Dallas City Hall? Why are the mayor and city council in a public fight over the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine? We'll ask Mayor Eric Johnson in just a moment. You're watching Inside Texas Politics. Our latest episode of Y'all-itics has caught fire. Remember the Lincoln Project, the group of Republicans that campaigned against Donald Trump using those blistering ads? Well, the Lincoln Project says it is now going after Senator Ted Cruz. Co-founder Rick Wilson is our guest this week. This podcast is making the rounds in D.C. as well, and here's how you can listen to it. Grab your phone, aim the camera at the QR code there on the right side of your screen, and it's going to open a window on your phone and take you directly to this new episode. Remember, we drop new episodes of Y'all-itics every Tuesday. The 87th Texas legislature is slowly coming together right now. Governor Abbott laid out some of his priorities a few days ago. In the Texas House, a starting budget that is going to fully fund public education in our state. Right now, the cost is split. The state pays half, and your property taxes pay the other half. This morning, the new Speaker of the Texas House, Dave Phelan, joins us from his office there at the Capitol. Mr. Speaker, good to see you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's talk about your budget priorities. You want to fully fund public education there in the House as your base budget. I presume, though, that means that if that were to happen and were to get passed, that my property taxes would go down. Is that right?
Well, there is a compression rate to all that, absolutely, and that is something that we want to be mindful of. And I have the full faith of the House when we release our base budget will fully follow through with that commitment that we passed in 2019.
Mr. Speaker, can you talk about what is eliminated from the budget in order to achieve that fully funding of public education?
There is some agency reductions throughout the budget where we cut spending, absolutely. We do have the opportunity with some federal dollars through the CARES Act as well. At some point, both chambers will have to look at whether or not we want to use the rainy day fund, the ESF fund, which is over $11 billion as well. It's a very conservative budget. It's something that I think Texans will be proud of.
You've already had some pushback from the right wing of the Republican Party there. The state GOP chairman, Alan West, did not initially support you. At least one member of the House did not vote for you, but because he said that you wouldn't commit to a truly conservative session. What is your message, Mr. Speaker, to the far right wing of your party?
I have an open door policy. I'm willing to work with anybody on any issue that benefits Texas. And when you become a speaker or you become a leader here in politics, whether it's lieutenant governor or the governor, you're going to have critics, and that's fine. And sometimes it's constructive and sometimes it's not. But I just say, I'm willing to work with anybody on any issue. And this is a member-driven process, and the agenda will be brought forth by the members of the Texas House. And the speaker is not going to dictate what occurs or doesn't occur. I want people to. This is a representative constitutional democracy, and I want members to represent their districts.
I want to ask you about President Biden canceling the Keystone Pipeline. You came out strongly against that. You represent not only the state, but also Beaumont, Port Arthur there, which is a huge refinery area. How do you expect that the Biden administration might impact, decisions like this might impact the oil and gas industry in our state?
It just sends the wrong message from day one that you're going to go after the oil and gas industry. It's vital to the state of Texas. It's obviously extremely important to Southeast Texas and House District 21, where I represent. The Keystone Pipeline ends in Nederland, Texas, where I represent. And, whether you agree or disagree on the use of fossil fuels or not, nothing's safer than a pipeline in transporting that product. And we want to get it off the roads. We want to get it off trains, and put it in a pipeline. And the pipeline already exists coming through Texas, so it's already there. We would just like to see it completed all the way through to where we could use those resources to create jobs in Southeast Texas and for Texas. And so we just want to be energy independent as well. We're finally energy independent, in my opinion. This country is, and quite frankly, it's because of the state of Texas that's driving that. And I think it just sends the wrong message to voters that this is how we're going to start the administration, by attacking the oil and gas industry.
Mr. Speaker, best of luck to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
We had a lot more questions for Speaker Phelan, what he sees as the most controversial legislation this session, and why he doesn't take himself too seriously. The uncut interview live right now at WFAA.com/Inside Texas Politics. Let's zoom in on Dallas for a moment. There is a dispute at Dallas City Hall between council members and the mayor, and at issue is how and where to give out the COVID-19 vaccine. Joining us now is Mayor Eric Johnson to explain what is happening behind the scenes. Mayor, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Happy New Year.
Absolutely. We haven't talked to you since 2020. Hopefully this year will be better. Let's talk about this latest issue. We have seen memos flying back and forth. Council members want to open up hubs so Dallas citizens can register for the vaccine. You suggested in the memos that I've seen that the decision should be yours. People are asking, why are both sides working collaboratively at City Hall to figure this out?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, you can always tell when it's campaign season around City Hall. You start to see some of this stuff. But let me see if I can clarify some things for folks out there. First of all, the decision is mine. State law is pretty clear about that. So there's really that's not really an issue. The issue is this. Here's where we are running into some disagreements at City Hall. It's not actually a conflict between individuals, or at least not from my perspective. It's a conflict about the role you think politics should play in determining anything in relation to this life-saving vaccine. My position is this: when you're talking about a life-saving vaccine, you have to keep politics far, far away from those decisions. You need to make those decisions solely based on science and data, and let people whose jobs are to make those types of decisions make them free of politics. What council members want to do, and look, you see this every campaign season, right? And it's no different during a pandemic, apparently, and I think that's unfortunate, but it's true. They want to have things determined based on their relationship with the city manager or their relationship with the city government. So they want to have resources directed to their districts without any regard to where they actually should be deployed. My request is very simple. Let the pros handle this. Let Rocky Vaz, who's my appointed emergency management coordinator, determine where these sites should go. I never said we shouldn't have them. I said we got to have professionals making those decisions, not council members who are up for re-election.
And so on Monday night is the specially called council meeting. Do you expect these decisions will be made Monday night?
There won't be any decisions made Monday night because the state law says I make those decisions and nothing can override that. In the state of emergency, which we're under right now, I'm the city's emergency management director. And I deal directly with Clay Jenkins and the folks over at their county when I'm representing the city and making decisions in connection with this. So there's really nothing to discuss. And I think it's unfortunate that we're actually wasting valuable time during a pandemic when we should be focused on what we ought to be doing, which is getting shots in people's arms.
Well, let's
as quickly as possible.
Mayor, let's talk about that. The state is giving the city of Dallas, 5,000 shots in the next few days here of the vaccine. These will be given out at the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center, I believe is what I understand. But you guys are using county data to figure out who actually gets them. How long is these 5,000, how long is this going to last? Because I would think that we need to get a heck of a lot more than that pretty soon, don't we?
Well, this is the greatest news we've had in a long time about this. The fact that my advocacy in Austin has yielded the result that we are going to get a direct allocation at the city of Dallas of this vaccine means we are going to be able to get shots in people's arms faster. Look, there are three issues that are going to determine how fast we can get shots into people's arms. One is the availability of vaccines. None of us has any control over that. The second is whether or not we have adequate vaccine distribution plans. And that's something the county is really the driving force behind, and we can talk about the shortcomings of that system and the year they've had to plan for that. And I think the results have been very, very mixed over there. But the third thing is what I talked about before: making sure that there are no politics involved in determining who gets these vaccines and how. Right. So what we're going to do at the city is we're going to start distributing vaccines directly to the public ourselves, and we're getting our first shipment here soon, so we'll be getting started in days.
Mayor, let me ask you a last thing here too. You just announced on Instagram you're going to have a third kid coming up. Congratulations on that. When's the due date? Another boy to go with the other two, William and George, or what?
The baby's due in the spring. We're not telling folks the exact due date because we don't want to induce an early delivery by stressing out my wife. But with all the people saying, "When is the baby here yet? Is the baby here yet?" But we never find out the gender of our children beforehand. We don't do gender reveals, and we've never found out in advance. Every kid's been a surprise, so we have no idea what we're having.
Mayor, congratulations! Thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. Great to be here.
Thank you. The Biden administration is the biggest national political news right now. After 4 years of silence, how will Texas Republicans react to the new president? We'll look ahead on the Roundtable in a moment.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ross Ramsey from the Texas Tribune is back with us. Bud Kennedy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram is here. And of course, Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas, joins us for this segment each week. Ross, to start with you. Like everyone, we watched last Wednesday for the inauguration, and we heard a lot of talk of unity, not only from Democrats, but Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, and also Mitch McConnell. Is Texas really on board with this, and are Texas Republicans really on board with this?
Not completely. I think the uncivil war that the president talked about is still loud and going. Greg Abbott used to have a line when he was AG that he gets up in the morning. He has an easy job. He gets up in the morning, sues the Obama administration, and go home. Ken Paxton, the current AG, picked up that line after Biden was speaking. So here we go again.
Yeah, I worry that here we go again. Bud, what do you expect?
Yeah, all Texas does when there's a Democrat in the White House, all Texas does is fight that Democrat. And I think that's what we've seen in the past and what we see again. Of course, right now you have, the fractions, the factions in the Republican Party. You have the Republican Party, the Trump Party, and the Tea Party all fighting to see who's going to dominate in Texas. And you have a governor who might want to be a presidential nominee down the road. So you have a lot of confusion going on. Joe Biden isn't the only focus.
Yeah, of course, there is a lot of disarray, Bernadine, in the Texas Republican Party.
Absolutely. And I think that their first focus will probably be on uniting its own party. But keep in mind, winning elections is the primary goal. And you can't go along with the opposite party forever, because what reason would you give for throwing them out of office? So I think you're going to see a little of it, but not a lot.
Let's talk about something else that I think a lot of people had hoped would be farther along at this point, Ross, and that's the COVID-19 vaccine. They did all this work to get the vaccine rushed out, and then we find out there's no real plan for it on the national level or the state level, or even in Dallas, there doesn't seem to be a solid plan for it either. We heard earlier in the program, is anyone really taking the heat for this politically?
I think it's kind of all around the place. There's not enough vaccine for the number of people who need to be vaccinated, and the rationing that's taking place as a result gives you political haves and have-nots. And until they've got enough of the vaccine to give everybody who wants and needs a shot, they're going to have a fight going.
Bud?
Jason, for the first time, a lot of people are looking up to see who their county commissioner is, and not just in urban counties, but in rural counties. They say, I want to call my county commissioner. You know what? We don't have a health department? You mean we don't even? I mean, we don't even have a county health department at all. People are demanding more of their county commissioners and letting them know what they want. Those county commissioners would like to turn some of the blame back to the state.
Yeah, and the state, of course, Bernadine, wants to turn the blame back to the federal government. So everyone's blaming everybody, huh?
Yes, which is typical of the COVID-19 fight. They've usually blamed each other or blamed someone else instead of taking responsibility. But I think this is new, and it's being rolled out, and President Biden is trying to get a handle on it as well. I think that over the course of a few weeks, months, you're going to see people coming together, and the local authorities will stop fighting among themselves. Yeah,
well, let's hope that's the case. Of course, President Biden wants to do 100 million doses in the first 100 days. We understand there might be enough to actually make that happen. So, guys, thanks so much for your time this morning. We appreciate that, and thank you for watching as well. We're back again next Sunday. Take you inside Texas politics once again. Hope to see you then.